Hello, and welcome to Tuesdays at 2, the March edition. We're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm going to do some demonstrating on some pattern changes. Do we have any housekeeping? I don't remember anything. Other than remember the contest, or not contest, sorry, challenge and discovery. The challenge is to take your sloper or your shirt pattern that you have pretty much as a sloper, fits you everywhere, and make some changes to it. Just, you could turn it into a dress or you can just add pockets, whatever suits your aesthetic. But I want you to just step outside the box and try a little pattern changing. And that's why we're doing all these demonstrations. So, and if you haven't entered yet, you don't have to do much. Just get your entry in by April 1st. You can always tell us when you order. If you tell us when you order a pattern or some fabric, we will send you a free package of the light and stable interfacing, which we all love. So just let us know if you haven't that you want to. We'll only send that out if you place an order, because we could just stick it into the order and it's not that much difference in shipping. Okay, so that's the challenge. And the discovery part of that challenge is you're going to discover that yes, you can too make some of those changes, and you don't have to keep buying pattern after pattern and reinventing the wheel every time to get a good fit. Because that's what slopers are all about. Getting a good fit every time you sew without a lot of retro work, like put it together, then find out it doesn't fit and have to take some of it apart. That's no fun. And we want to get on to make the next project instead. All right, so today I'm going to show you what I did with my shirt sloper. And you've seen quite a few of them. They are on Facebook. As a matter of fact, we had the last couple we did are put together, and they're called the convertible collar. And it show you exactly how to take a button-up shirt and turn it into one that just has a facing instead of the plackets, and how to make just the right collar for that shirt. And there's a whole demo on that one. So I'm taking that same sloper and I'm going to turn it into this tunic. And the tunic is of a woven rayon. And so it's a little bit different. It's going to hang a little different, and you always want to take that into consideration. But you can certainly make, remember, we started with the button-up shirt, traditional shirt that usually you make out of Oxford or poplin or just a sheeting. So that's very firm and doesn't have anywhere near as much drape as a rayon. So I made it the convertible collar, but I had to change my collar. I had to make a deeper collar because I wanted to put that faux collar stand in, that fusible collar stand that will be in that convertible collar YouTube video. So I wanted to do that, so I had to deepen that collar. I wanted a little more movement for the fabric, so I added an inch in the center back. And I'm going to show you all of this. And then we were playing with flounces, so I started with a flounce, and it just didn't suit this design or this fabric or something, but it just didn't suit it. So I did a modified big cuff. It's flared, but it's not a circle flounce. But it's kind of fun. It's pretty much in fashion now. I see a lot of designers doing this. Now this one is a 3/4 length sleeve, but you could do it as nearly a full length, or at least to the wrist. So that's kind of fun. All right. And of course, the pattern matches all the way down the center front. And that video to learn how to do that, if you don't already know how to get your pattern to match easily down the center front, is part of the Islander shirt. So the Islander shirt, we gave demos and a video on how to cut it out so that you could get that match every time, as well as matching the print on the pocket. I didn't put a pocket on this one. Oh, I also left it a nice slit up the side. I always like a high slit because I'm constantly needing a pocket. And if my top doesn't have a pocket, my pants do. So I can get my hands into my pockets easily. Okay, so when I wanted the extra room in the back, my back is cut on the fold. So I moved it 1 inch over from the fold of the fabric. Or you can actually temporarily tape a piece of paper on here and make it 1 inch. You could go 2. That wouldn't be too much. Somewhere between 1 and 2. I think 1 was not quite enough. 1 actually you got to figure is doubled. So we got 2 inches, but putting it into a little pleat was very tiny. If I do it again, I think I'd go more like 1.5 to 2. So that's all you have to do is just cut it wider at that point. But then you're going to mark it right here. When you cut it out, you have a little mark on both sides so you know where it has to meet because you want it to fit the back. So you're going to have to put a pleat or some kind of gathering or multiple pleats to get it to fit. So by making that mark, you know exactly when you've got it to fit the center. And marking the center of everything is so important. We do that as often as possible with our patterns, but not very many pattern companies do it. The reason we do it is because we sew without pins or basting. We want to know that when we get to the center, if I'm sewing my yoke onto this shirt back, and I get to the center and it doesn't match there, I'm going to stop. I made a mistake. Something went wrong. But if I've got the center match, then I know I'm right on and everything's working well. And centers make a big difference in getting things to hang just right. So, okay, so that's all I did to the back. The fronts, I used the convertible collar fronts that are in that video on YouTube. And again, all you have to do is search convertible collar and it'll pop right up. Well, I had to change the collar. And I'm going to show it right down here. Is that going to be good, Brenda, if I show them here?
Betsy would like to know what pattern you used.
What's the name?
Betsy.
Betsy, I'm using a sloper. It's CS 1201.
Yeah.
CS 1201. And I took a little bit from here and a little bit from there, but the Shirt Makers Express, the Women's Shirt Makers Express, is also kind of incorporated in here. But you could use either one. You just need to have the fit down first. So some of the viewers here are using one of our shirt patterns they bought and got it to fit just right. So they're basing all their patterns on that. We have sloper patterns, which will serve you very well. And you make a sloper, and then you can compare that sloper to any commercial pattern to make sure that it's going to fit you and hang right. Maybe one shoulder's higher than the other. Different figures have different issues. And whatever it might be, you'll know it's going to fit by using that sloper. Or, in the case of what we're doing here, we're showing you how to take a basic sloper or a basic pattern and make changes. So you don't go out and buy 12 different shirt patterns. You only need one. And everything else can come after that, and it's not difficult. So, first things I want to tell you about is my collar that I had to change. So, let's see. Is this my original? This is my original collar. But I didn't think it was a deep enough collar to put that faux collar stand or that fusible collar stand we told you about. And that's what I wanted to put in this one. So I used it as my base because I know it's going to fit. Now remember, this is the neckline seam, the bottom of this piece. So as long as that matches, I can do whatever I want over here. This is where the seam is. So, and this, I've got it folded because when you draft the collar, you draft it folded. But more often than not, I make it into a full pattern piece. I don't want to cut it on the fold because if I'm cutting a stripe or something, I want to see that it's straight all the way across. Okay, so that was my original. So I drew it deeper. And I made it higher in the back than it is here. Just a little bit. Then I wanted an undercollar so it would turn really nice. So then I made it an undercollar. So what you do is you draft the collar the way that we told you. And I think, what I say, page, oh, here it is. It's in the book, Connie's drafting book, and it's page 207. Talks all about the collars. And some of you did it and were very successful, so you know it's not real complicated. It's quite simple to draft this collar, actually. So then you'll find on page 207 how to make an undercollar. And really what you do is you take the collar draft and you add 1/8 of an inch. You can't add it right at the seam. Remember, this matches perfect here. So stay real close to that until you're above the seam line and then angle right out to the point. So it's 1/8 from here. And then all across the top, we put another 1/8 on. And now this becomes the upper collar, and this, the first collar, is the undercollar. And you'll see it fits together like that. So it's just that much bigger. And again, we can do that. We could make it huge. We could make a really long point. We can do whatever we want with it as long as we don't interrupt the seam that matches the neckline. Okay, so that's what I did with the collar. And I really like it. The other one was just too short in the back. So this one, oh, sorry, Brenda. Brenda had to step away a second. So we have that nice, just enough for me. I have a very, very short neck. So I don't want it too high. All right. And a lot of times, if you don't know exactly what width you want,
It's Connie.
why don't we just turn that phone off?
I can't.
You can leave it off the hook. Okay. Sorry about that. Someone doesn't realize we're on the air right now. Okay. I think I'm done with the collar. But if you have questions, sing out. Brenda will be right back with us. Okay, another thing I had to do was, this sleeve in my sloper is a short sleeve. So I had to lengthen the sleeve. So I lengthened the sleeve pattern. I'm going to put it down here, Brenda.
Okay.
All right, so I lengthened the sleeve pattern, and it has to go in a little bit narrow. It comes to about the elbow is where I wanted it, and that measurement is going to be very important between the seam allowances here when we make the cuff. Okay, so we measured this. It's 12 inches right here, and that. Remember, when you're going to measure to add something, you're always going to measure within the seam allowances, not cut edge to cut edge, but the actual area it's going to be sewn to. So a lot of times in drafting, we call it the finished seam, which means what it measures within the seam allowance, not cut edge to cut edge. Okay, do you see if there's anybody has any questions? We had a little... I got a little disjointed there when the phone kept ringing.
No questions.
Okay, good. So, here's the cuff pattern. And this was arbitrary as to how far I was going to spread this. So I spread it to be about 20% bigger at the bottom than the area that it gets sewn to. Now, simple thing to do to make that cuff was, again, we're going to measure the area that it's going to be sewn to. Not edge to edge, but the area within the seam allowances. And that turned out to be 12 for this example. So 12 inches wide. Then you decide, how deep do I want the cuff? I think I made it 4.5 or 5. Let me see. 5. So I made it 5 inches. And again, that's finished. No seam allowances are involved yet. You always finish your draft and then add the seam allowances. So we've made this 12 inches because we know that's what it's going to sew to. And we made it 5 inches deep because we decided that's the depth of our cuff that we want. And everyone's going to be different because we all have different proportions. I have just probably an average length arm, but I'm a short person, so I don't want things to be overwhelming. So I went from the elbow and I measured down about where I would want it. And you could do that. And again, you could take a hint from ready to wear. If you've got garments that have something similar and you want to see exactly what the proportions are for you, go ahead and take a look at that out of your closet. Okay, now we've got to make this edge wider than this edge, but we cannot change this edge because this is the 12 inches that's going to be sewn to our sleeve. So we're going to take this piece and cut it out. And in this case, I divided it into 2-inch pieces. Depending on the width, how you're going to need to know how you can divide it equally. So this one was easy because it's 12. I can divide by 2 inches. They have all these are 2 inches. But that isn't always true. So you may need a calculator. It may be spreading at different proportions. Okay, so then I've made my straight line, I think 12 inches. And that doesn't actually matter because when we cut those apart, remember we cut them into 2-inch pieces. So then I slice it to within a hair of the top so that it can spread really easily. I've drawn a straight of the grain line here so I can stay on track and make sure that each side is equal. And I like to try to keep them up against this line just so, again, I can see that I'm staying even with everything. So I think what I decided here, I learned that I needed to spread them by a 1/2 inch. So you start with the center one. And usually I make a little mark on the paper so that I get those lined up exactly a 1/2 inch apart. This is a little more difficult. You know what? I'm going to move this closer to me, Brenda.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that and I kind of forgot. Okay, so this will be a lot easier. All right, so I want to keep that centered and I want them a 1/2 inch apart. So actually that would be 1/4 inch from each side of this arrow. So that's a good place to start. Okay, I measured too high up. Okay, there's a 1/2 inch right there, and then you're going to tape it down. Then we go across to all the others and measure a 1/2 inch apart. And be careful that you get this nice, then you'll have a nice even cuff. And again, I think I started too high. Oh well, 1/2 inch. And then across again to 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch. Now I've got a finished one here somewhere. Oh, here it is. So once you have that spread, 1/2 inch all the way, and you know the reason you came up with that 1/2 inch is because you know how much bigger you want this on the bottom than you had on the top. I wanted it 20%. So I did my math. I wanted 20% bigger. So let's say it's not more than 3 or 4 inches, but let's say it's 4. So then I'm going to divide 4 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the distance that I'm going to put between each so that I get that extra 5 inches or 4 inches. Okay. Now, is that clear?
No questions.
Okay. Then, while it's spread and everything, you're going to draw your seam allowance all the way around the outside. So in this case, I drew 3/8, and it's very simple. You can just measure with your clear ruler, and I measure below each one of these, and then I connect them. And that's how it becomes a curve. You got to line it up with the angle and mark your 3/8, and then mark your 3/8, and then you can connect the two. This is now my pattern. It's got the seam allowance. It's exactly the size I need it to be. And now I can just discard this. Oops. It usually comes up easier. And there is my pattern piece. Now it should have the straight grain line on it. And this one I missed. And of course, then you're going to label it with today's date and who it's for or what it's for, what it goes with. So that if they get separated somewhere in your studio, your sewing room, you'll know where to put it back to. So that's the cuff. Now, in the case of this cuff, I overlapped it by 1 inch. So if you're going to overlap it by 1 inch, you want to add that inch to your finished circumference or your finished length of the top of your cuff. So, and that's kind of cute. It just sort of falls. I think you saw the picture in the newsletter. Okay, boy, that went pretty fast. Did I go too fast? Let's see.
No questions.
No questions. Are you kidding me? All right. Well, while you're taking all that in, and if you have any questions about changing a sleeve or collar, any part of your garment to change your slope or sleeve pattern, but I have 3 fabrics here Brenda and I are looking at that we might want to purchase. 1, 2, 3. Vote for your favorite. Just put a 1 or a 2 or a 3. This is 1. Let's see if I can do, is that right? And there's the 3.
There is a
3's
question.
backwards.
Oh, that's good.
2's probably backwards too, right? Yeah.
There is a question.
Okay.
Did you straighten the seam at the bottom where it joins the sleeve? That was Mary.
Yeah, it's completely straight, Mary. Here it is.
Okay. Make sure you can see
Now, when you get a sleeve that's really short, you're going to have a curve, so you'll have to straighten it out. But oftentimes it's a little bit longer sleeve and might have that little kick out for the hem right here. You'll get rid of that. But otherwise, you just want to figure out how wide you want this at the bottom and how long you want it. If I want it 12 inches, then I'm going to go 6 this way and 6 this way. And then add seam allowance.
I think 3, 1.
Oh, Brenda's having fun watching, see what's going to win. Our voting.
Did you make the slit in the sleeve to do the overlap?
There's no slit in the sleeve. Nope. It's just overlapped at the bottom. It's just it's a fun cuff. You don't need a slit up that high. The reason you need a slit in a sleeve to add a cuff to is because the sleeve comes down really narrow here. And you want that slit opening so you can put your arm through. So that slit has a purpose at the bottom of a sleeve, but you don't need, this is only to the elbow, around the elbow area. So you don't need a slit. You could put one on because it could be a cute design element, but you don't need it.
Looks like a pretty even split.
Oh, great.
I
All
have to count
right.
them up, but 1 and 3.
1 and 3. Okay.
Most-
Those, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. We'll keep that in mind. We're getting ready to purchase some fabrics for the spring, summer. All right. Well, gee, I should have went slower. Oh. Remember that convertible collar and all the directions you need to change your button-up shirt to one that just overlaps with the facing, and this actually has a self-facing, is all there for you. Every detail is demonstrated. So you can, just change your button-up to just a convertible collar, real simple, in a regular shirting. You can use a camp shirt. This one went a little beyond the camp shirt and became more of like a tunic, because it's rayon, it's got a little more upscale to it than a camp shirt where it's usually a cotton or a cotton blend. Well,
No more questions.
no more. Gosh, I wish I had more news. I thought my demo would take longer. I swear, I'll think of it after we leave. We do have a sale going on right now, and that is the woven bodice sloper. And it comes with the pattern and muslin and paper. Or there's a second level of the kit that comes with the video and 2 more patterns. So Connie's video on truing and fitting a pattern comes with that kit. So those kits are on sale at 15% off, and the code is in the newsletter. But if you didn't get the newsletter, the code is best fit, all one word, best fit. And I really encourage you to make a sloper. You'll wish you'd had one your whole life once you make one. You'll never want to live without it. A woman called me the other day, and when she was younger, a pattern drafter made her all her slopers. So she had a pant sloper and a couple of 2 or 3 different bodice slopers. And they actually put them on the tag board that slopers, that designers use. And she said it was so wonderful. She could just grab that and make up whatever she wanted, and she just loved it. Well, she got a little ways away from it, and then, of course, as life does, her body changed considerably, and so now she doesn't have access to that person anymore, so she wanted to start developing a set of slopers again, because she knew how much more fun and easier sewing was. It just opens up so much creativity. So I really applauded her. She's going to start out and do it herself, but she already knows how to use it. And when you make a sloper, and if you put it into tag board, the tag board is heavy enough that you just draw around it. You don't cut around it. You just draw with chalk around it, and then you cut it out. And then you hang it back on the hook, and it never gets distorted like paper patterns. It doesn't get whittled away like paper patterns. So when you make a sloper, we always tell you, keep your master pristine. Don't cut from it. Trace around it and make a one to use until that one's getting ragged, and then you've still got your original. Trace around it again to make another pattern. Or you do the tag board way, and that really helps too. And those patterns hang in a closet because they have a little hook, hang them in the closet, and you can put all your slopers in there. But I think that's all I have for today. We have 2 questions.
Bernice says she loves the buttons. Do you carry them?
Thank you, Bernice. And no, I don't carry the buttons. Bernice likes the buttons. Okay, I don't know if anybody here knows Marcy Tilton. But Marcy Tilton and a friend of hers who was a legendary button man. We used to call him the button man because he made buttons, but he also collected and found unusual buttons. It was really fun to visit him. And they had those buttons at a class I was teaching in Oregon one time. And I'm talking 35 years ago, I think. Not close to that, 30 at least. I bought those buttons, and this is the first opportunity I had to use them. So, thanks, Marcy. 30 years later.
Melanie would like to know what's the difference between a blouse and a shirt.
Melanie would like to know what the difference between a blouse and a shirt is. Well, that's up to who you ask. But for me, a blouse is more like this, although I'm calling it a tunic. A blouse is usually doesn't look like a man's shirt. It's pretty basic. You know, a shirt is a button-up shirt or a camp shirt. But when you get into flounces and fuller sleeves, a lot of times the sleeves have a high cap in them. That's more of a blouse. I guess I would say just a little bit dressier, more upscale look. But softer fabrics are usually used.
Questions?
Sure.
Where do you get tagboard and how do you cut out the sloper on the tagboard?
Okay, where do you get tagboard and how do you cut out the sloper on the tagboard? Okay, you get tagboard from, you know, I got a piece on the floor over there underneath the iron. You can get it from Amazon, I believe, and they sell it in 36-inch, I don't know how, but 36-inch wide is a good width.
Do you want just this little piece?
Yeah, I just want to show them what it's like. So I have a roll of this stuff, and it's pretty firm. It's not like a manila folder or anything. It's got a little more oomph to it. If it's not rolled, it'll come flat. And I think the ones at Amazon are flat, and they'll come flat. But if you have a curled piece, we just take it along the edge of the table, and I'm pulling along the edge of the table, and it starts to straighten it out right away. So, and then you just lay your pattern on here. Let's try this one. We're going to draw around this pattern, and we're going to put every label, marking, whatever on here, trace around, and then you cut it. You can cut it with a rotary cutter, but actually this is one place I prefer to use scissors. In that drawer, pattern making supplies, could you hand me a hook? And just hand me the whole drawer.
Which?
Left, down about 2/3 of the way. Pattern making.
Ooh, no hook.
There's no hooks there?
I got
Okay.
a hook.
There's usually one at the end there hanging. Yep, I think I see it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So then, other fun things when you make, in the industry we use this rabbit punch. And it cuts a round hole somewhere near the top of your pattern. And then this is threaded through that hole. And then your, of course it'll be flat, but then your pattern hangs in a closet, so it always stays nice and flat. Other thing that we use is a notcher. And again, I made patterns on tagboard for 25 years and never owned a rabbit punch, so you don't have to have one. I just took my X-Acto knife and cut a hole. The notcher works good wherever you have you want to put a notch. It just creates this little spot, and then you can take your chalk. You see that? I don't know. Is there enough contrast?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
I don't have anything in different color, but you can see that. And then you just chalk there and you know that's where your notch is. Again, X-Acto knife will do the same thing. These kind of supplies are available at Wawak. W-A-W-A-K? Or is this? Yeah, Wawak. They're in Wawak, New Jersey. And trust me, that's the way it's pronounced. I've heard everything across the country. Waywak, Wawak, whatever. But if you live in New Jersey, you know how it's pronounced. Okay. I use a lot of removable tape when I'm making patterns too. So with the paper patterns, once when you get to the tag board, everything's pristine. You don't want to tape tag board together. You don't want to have any irregularities in it because that's going to be your master pattern.
Dee said she got some from an art supply store.
Okay. And it comes in different weights, and I wish I knew because the first time I bought it, I bought too light of a weight. You've got to have a nice firm weight or it will start to deteriorate on you. I've got patterns I made so long ago I don't want to say. But let's say in the 80s, I made patterns on that tag board and they still are in perfect shape in my loft. So, and I've actually used one or two recently. So it's a great way to have your master patterns.
Elaine would like to know what's the difference in rayon versus shirting for making the tunic.
Okay, so rayon is very drapey. You see how drapey that is? Now let me get a shirting. So, nice shirting does have a little bit of a drape to it, but it's not going to be as loose. You see it kind of stays, it's a tighter weave, where the rayon has all this fluidity to it that you don't get in a regular shirting. This is firm in both directions, and it's a tighter weave. You can even see, this is a beautiful rayon. I have it in black too. It's on the website. And it's, the print on here is a Gauguin. So it's not a Gauguin painting or anything, but some of his illustrating was copied over. And so they have it in, we have it in black and in this, I don't know, it's an orange, but it's almost a red, Chinese red or something. What you looking for, Brenda?
I was looking for it so you could show it.
Oh, the black?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be down there. It's probably at this end. Oh my goodness.
All right.
Did you find it?
No.
Okay, let me get it.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
Oh, here it is. There
Yeah,
it is.
it's,
Whoa,
it's
it's
woven.
stuck.
I mean, wound on backwards.
Jeez. Oh my gosh. Oh.
Hang on to this.
Okay, I am. I'm trying.
Okay, that was easy. I'm back. But you can see this is like more fluid than, it's going to act very differently. With this fabric, I would only use the light and stable. With a shirting, we're going to use, in some places, medium firm as well as light and stable. But something as soft as this makes a great Islander shirt too. So this, and both of these prints could go masculine or feminine. So they're lovely and cool to wear in the summer. It is a natural fiber. And if you see fiber content that says modal, it's rayon. If you see fiber content that says viscose, it's rayon. And if you see Rayon is rayon. I don't know why they keep coming up with all these new names, but it's all rayon. And rayon is had a really bad name in the 50s and the 60s. It would stretch out of shape. What people just really didn't like it after using it a little bit. So once they perfected it, some of the more seasoned sewers weren't too happy to go forward into rayon right away. But that's not the case. So if you're feeling that or have heard that, it's not the case anymore. This stuff is beautiful. And what I started to say before is you can actually see the weave up close. And if you take a look at the enlarged piece on the website, I think you'll be able to see that. So it adds another depth to the design.
Elaine would like to know. Oh, somebody asked, does it shrink while it's here?
Yes, a little. It used to shrink a lot. This one I cut 2 yards, 72 inches. It came back at 71. So it shrank less than 1%.
And does it wrinkle? Doesn't rayon wrinkle quite a bit?
Not while you're wearing it. Depends on, like if you wore something that was a snug sleeve and you had your elbows bent, you might get some creases there. But that's not usually what you make rayon out of. You make rayon on a looser, softer. This is kind of a little bit oversized and just meant to drape on the body.
So Elaine is asking for the tunic. Oh, it just went away. Wait a minute. How would you make? What changes would you do to the draft for the rayon versus the shirting?
Okay, she's asking what changes would I make in the draft because I'm making it out of rayon rather than out of shirting. And basically was just added a little more width to it by adding that little extra at the back in that pleat. And I actually added more to the front and I ended up taking most of it out. So my theory is, especially if I'm making it for myself, well, I might like a little more oversized so I can cut it that way, baste it up, and go, nah, that's a little bit too much, and then I can trim it back and retrofit it, sort of, to speak. But if I've never done it before, that's the way I do. But if I do it, then on my pattern, I'm going to write down what I did, what I made it out of rayon, so next time I don't have to rely on my fading memory.
Okay.
I mean, I really encourage everyone to make notes on their patterns. Always label the piece. Always put down what it's going with. If you're doing a whole pattern, either give it a name or a number so that you can put it on all the pieces. And again, how many of us have lost a pattern piece and then just been sick about it? I actually had to redraft that sleeve because I did what I always tell you not to do. I used my master pattern and slid it up to create a bishop sleeve and then didn't go back and then I knew when I went to do this, I went to pull it out and I knew exactly what I'd done when I couldn't find the sleeve. I did exactly what I say not to do. So, trust me, don't do that. Always keep your masters pristine. Don't use them for anything else, even if you're in a hurry. It only takes a few minutes to trace that out. All right. That was Elaine?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's about it, Elaine. Just a little more. I wanted it to be a little looser fit than a camp shirt. And if you want to do something out of rayon, maybe you want to do just what I said, is make it a little bit bigger. Now, I know it fits me in the bust, so I'm not going to enlarge it under the arm. What I did was I brought it out a little bit from there. But you don't want to change the underarm because then the sleeve won't fit. Okay, so leave that alone. But you could always change this. And I wanted it to kind of hang a little bit, I don't know what I'm saying, not even. Just kind of fall forward, be kind of an artsy look, I'll call it. I put a 1-inch hem in it instead of just a little tiny hem because it gives a little more weight to the rayon. I also put interfacing in the hem. So the entire hem and the plackets, or the slit here, have a 1-inch piece of interfacing in them. So I use a light and stable. I cut some 1-inch strips. I go to the ironing station. I press it to the bottom. You have a nice place to turn it up, and it just makes those hems hang a little bit nicer. Just adds that little bit better look. Like the difference between Walmart and Nordstrom's. It's got just a little more style, I guess.
So Dolores is asking, do we need a sloper and then a pattern for specific designs? Changes we might make? Question mark.
Okay, so what you need is a sloper. That sloper is the map of your body for, let's say, the bodice. So you're going to get a sloper for the bodice. You're going to get it all fit to your body. Then you're going to have a front or 2 fronts, depending on if it's a button down, and a back and a sleeve, and then everything else can go from there. And a lot of us use this book, Pattern Making Made Easy, because it tells you how to make every pattern piece. So you've already got your pattern. You didn't have to draft the whole pattern, but you want to make a different sleeve. You want to add a sleeve to something that's sleeveless. You want to change the type of collar, or in the instance of this where we took a button down and made it an overlap shirt. But you have all that direction in here, but your sloper is the map of what fits your body and your body alone. Because we all have differences. When you go to measure somebody, you find out real quick, one shoulder's not the same length as the other. Legs aren't usually the same length from waist to the floor. And a lot of times people have one shoulder much higher than the other. You don't see it in their clothes. You don't see it, but when you go to want to really get a nice fit on somebody, that's when you start to see those things. Or if you're like Brenda and I, we had ditto forms made. Woo! That is pretty shocking. But it's the best tool for fitting. But when you see yourself naked in a dress, as a dress form, whew, yeah. But you see, Brenda has very different, her shoulders are very different, both of them. They're different length and a different angle. You think, when people put their clothes on, well, you don't even think about it. Just everybody has square shoulders, right? Oh, no. Some shoulders go way down at an angle. And then they go anywhere from totally level to at an angle, but they're usually not the same angle. So everybody's a little different. And then you get to the rounded back or the sway back and all the differences in you. Like I try to tell people, don't use a dress form to try to fit yourself, because unless that dress form has the same back waist length, has exactly the same tilt to the shoulder, exactly the same length on each as you do, which it doesn't, is no good to fit on. And it's really important to understand. We always have people say, why can't they make patterns that fit? Well, they can, but they have to fit the dress form because they've given you a place to start. They can't do one for each one of us, right? That's up to us. So that's why I'm trying to help home sewers realize if they get a few of these slopers done, they don't have to worry anymore. They could buy that cute commercial pattern and lay their pattern on top of it and go, oh, this is what I have to do to make that cute design fit my body, because I got a map of my body. Or if you find that you really like making some of the extra pieces, the new collar, new cuff, or whatever, then you'll have a lot of fun doing that. But you can cannibalize patterns. I did a little video on that recently. Frankenstein, I'm not cannibalizing. Frankenstein, where you take one piece from one pattern, but you can't do that cavalier. You have to know what you're doing. And there's just a few rules each time. So, if you want to know what slopers, you should have a knit bodice sloper. Then you want to have a woven bodice sloper. Now, you might want two. You might want one with princess seams and one with only darts. And there's 2 types of princess seam slopers that we carry. Then you're going to eventually want a pant sloper. And then, oh my goodness, you can just sew to your heart's delight, because as you're sewing, you know it's going to fit. And how many of us just sweat and stress over working so hard on a garment? We paid a lot of money for the fabric, and the whole time we're thinking, I hope this fits. I put a lot of work into it. I hope this fits. Now you don't have to hope. Now you'll know. That's what a sloper can do for you. And we're going to talk about that a lot in the coming months. And we have some surprises coming up concerning slopers as well. So, but any other questions that you may have that I don't have time to answer here in the show, or you don't think about them until an hour from now, no problem. Just send me an email. islandersewing@comcast.net. Hey Janet, I was just wondering, what about this type of sleeve, or whatever your question might be, and I'm happy to answer it. I try to put some of them in the newsletter, so I think that when one person has a question, probably a lot of people had that same question. I think that's it. If anybody has another quick question, hurry up, because I think we're running out of things to say. Yeah. But we've got some fun things coming up, so stay tuned to the newsletter. If you don't get our newsletter, go to the website, click on newsletter at the top, scroll down on that next page and sign up for the newsletter. And remember, all of our videos are replayed and housed on YouTube sometime by tomorrow morning. This one will be up. So thank you for joining us at Islander Sewing, and Tuesdays at 2. And we look forward to getting some of your questions. Oh, and we would love to see your finished garments. That is so much fun for us to see. You won't know. You make our day if we can see something that you made and you enjoyed, and you got some of your education or your supplies from us. So please do that, and we'll see you again next month. And don't forget, the shirt challenge is due April 1st. You still got time to start. But certainly challenge yourself. Happy sewing, everyone.
And